Hello and welcome. Here, the latest news from the Ukraine-Russia war. Russia is actually abandoning almost all of Kharkiv province, of Kharkiv Oblast, and is retreating towards the line at the Oskil River. Why this is actually a smart decision by the Russian military, I will explain in this video. All the news now show the Russians retreating from all of Kharkiv Oblast except that small fraction which is east of the Oskil River, with probably more or less 10% of the oblast, if not a little less. We have now videos and pictures directly from the front line here close to the border of the Russian Federation, where the towns are being liberated as of right now. Apparently, the Russians don't just retreat north of Kupiansk in that area towards Vovchansk, but also on the other side of the Seversky Donetsk, where they were still holding positions north of Kharkiv city itself. This decision might not have been absolutely necessary, as the Seversky Donetsk would somewhat protect their flank, but in the overall situation, it would have been highly likely that the Ukrainians would concentrate their victorious troops with high motivation on those forces, inflicting even more losses. So that decision might not have been urgently necessary, but surely wasn't a wrong decision overall. This, on the other hand, leads to a very interesting part, as this gets a lot of Russian military installations, ammo dumps, barracks, etc. within the range of the Ukrainian artillery along the whole line of this here, where the Ukrainians are currently taking over. There might be some remnants of the Russians left, but they are performing a full withdrawal along everything west of the Oskil River inside of Kharkiv Oblast. The Ukrainians are not allowed to use HIMARS on Russian territory, but there is no restrictions whatsoever on their own artillery, and I have not heard a single line about the other artillery that was delivered to them, whether it's the M777, whether it's the Panzerhaubitze 2000 or the French César, or the M109 that were also delivered. So Ukrainians might have a field day attacking we see here even that military airfield is fully in range of the Ukrainian artillery from now on. That decision, as it seems, was limited to everything east of the Oskil River. There seems to be Russians still holding that line down here. Liman, there are reports of battles. If we take this map here, we see that it shows us further advances, liberated and contested areas south of Liman, but everything indicates that Liman is still contested and there are Russians still in it. So right now, as of right now, it seems the Russians are trying to hold roughly a line down here to protect their Seversky Donetsk line, and to be a threat to the Ukrainian flank should the Ukrainians now decide to attack towards Lysychansk and Severodonetsk into Luhansk Oblast, which obviously would be extremely important for the Russians to keep it under control, as this was the first oblast they fully occupied, an oblast that was contested by and is part of the so-called Luhansk People's Republic, so one of the puppet states that Russia accepted and recognized as an independent state. Should the Ukrainians manage to enter Luhansk Oblast, that would be a loss of face for the Russians, and obviously a political disaster for them as well, that they can't even protect their two puppet regimes. The Ukrainians have pushed the Russians ahead of them, and there are at least some map indications that they might be crossing the Oskil in Kupiansk, but as of now, I don't see any proof of this. From the coloring, this only shows contested. That is not indicating that the Ukrainians have actually liberated something here. And as the road bridge was blown up, from my side of view, it seems unlikely that Ukrainians have crossed over here, but this will clarify within the next 48 hours probably, whether the Ukrainians continue their attack. Then this is the big question, whether this defensive line was too early, too close to the Ukrainian side, as they were in full swing. Their offensive is in full swing and can only be stopped by a pre-prepared defensive line that the Russians would have to build be behind the front line to give them time to consolidate their forces, to concentrate, to create entrenchments, to raise the morale, to let the fleeing troops rest, etc. Not into a full breakthrough of the Ukrainians while they are on the march. Whether this is too close or not, we will also see fairly soon, but the rest of the withdrawal is the absolutely right decision when you see it here. Everything in Russian troops here was either backwater troops, logistics, command posts, cooks, truck drivers, etc., or it was combat troops that were already routed here. To force them to face the Ukrainians again while they have already lost would just lead to more losses. That would lead to more loss in combat power, more loss in morale. So withdrawing them to a line where the Ukrainians can't follow is the absolutely right decision in this side from the Russians, especially as this is a very weird war in comparison to any normal war, as it is not to be expected that the Ukrainians will continue their attack over the Russian borders following the Russian forces to destroy them. There are some rumors on Twitter right now that Ukrainians might have crossed into Russia and actually stole Russian vehicles and returned with them to Ukraine. As of now, I think this is just a rumor of the pro-Ukrainian internet that is currently spreading every kind of victory report, whether it's reasonable or not, but we might see some proof of that within the next week or so. But as of now, I would not expect this to be actually true. The Russians now have the Oskil River as some geographical barrier for further Ukrainian advances. Whether they'll be able to hold it or not, we will see fairly soon. I don't think the Ukrainian offensive in total has already lost its steam, that the accumulation point is already reached, but obviously at this point it becomes a question how far the spearheads of the Ukrainian forces are still fully supplied with gasoline, with diesel, with food, ammo, etc., or whether they have to stop, rest, and recover and have the supply train actually catching up to them, because they very likely managed to run away from their own supply trains. This loss, as of now, we have a video I can show you where the Russians are supposedly being shown fleeing. Oh, that's the wrong video. I'm sorry. That's the that shouldn't have happened. I meant this here. This is the right video showing the Russians fleeing over the Oskil River, and as we can see, it's mostly trucks. And this is something where the Russian side has the disadvantage in their withdrawal. Everything that is damaged in a rapid withdrawal has to be left behind. Every tank that is one track missing right now, either through damage or through maintenance, has to be left behind. Every tank that isn't fully refueled has to be left behind. And thus, it is not much of a surprise that we see a lot of videos like this and pictures where we see quite a number of tanks now being taken over by the Russians. But here again, I need to put some to put this into some perspective. In my military training as a driver, for my military driver's license, we explicitly learned how to damage our equipment in a case like this, that we have to leave it behind so the enemy can't just take it over. There were different levels of damaging, depending on how much time we have, and it can be as easy as just shooting your assault rifle through the engine block to make it hard to repair it, and especially impossible to immediately start it up. There are possibilities that some of those things have been done here and we just can't see them. It's obvious that they haven't thrown hand grenades into the tanks with the open autoloader that should have led the tanks to blow up. That at least they didn't do, but we can't say that 100% of this equipment will be back in action. But what we see are the numbers that are visually confirmed, and that's, as of now, in the last week, 342 items, big military items being lost to the Russians. Of those, and that's a fairly high number showing now in the offensive, with the result that 142 of those items are being captured. Now, we don't exactly know, at least I can't read that map, to what degree what item is in each case that was being captured. but we have a significant number of captured equipment that will, at least to some degree, reinforce the Ukrainian forces pretty soon. And here again, just so you see it, the Ukrainians themselves in the same period reported 1,231 items, big military items, so tanks, multiple launch rocket systems, etc., being lost by the Russians. For me, it is only the visually confirmed that counts. We can obviously assume the number is actually higher than what is visually confirmed, as both the confirmation takes some time, and is obviously not every single item will be photographed, and not every of these photographs and videos will reach the observers. But as a matter of trying not to fall too much to the propaganda of each side, I stick to the visually confirmed, and even there it is quite significant, with, for instance, 99 IFVs lost in just 1 week, and a lot of them will now reinforce the Ukrainian side. Among the captured are not just equipment, but what we also see here is a lieutenant colonel. In Germany, at least, lieutenant colonels command battalions, and with battalion tactical groups, it makes sense that he's fairly close to the front line. So in itself, it is not a spectacular catch to capture a lieutenant colonel in that circumstance, but nevertheless, it is a high officer, 2 ranks usually below the general rank, just for those who don't know the regular rank system. In this case, not unimportant what they caught here. Now, there's interesting rumor as well that supposedly Ukrainians and Russians negotiated a ceasefire. According to that, the Russian forces are allowed to withdraw from the area. I have no confirmation of that yet. As of now, it might just be a rumor, and it would be not unprecedented in history. There are tons of examples where the attacking force allowed the defenders to retreat, sometimes without arms, sometimes with their full equipment, to save lives, on both sides. Obviously, even if you're vastly superior, you will still suffer losses, but at the same time, you save time and the opponent's lives are spared, while you gain a highly strategic point, be it a bridge, be it a castle, depending on how far you look back. So in theory, this is possible, but it would probably indicate that the Ukrainians might have outrun their supplies at that point, to come to a point where they say it's better not to destroy the forces we can, but rather to take the territory and let our supply catch up and save the losses that we might take at that point. Also, you can interpret it by military theory, according to which you want to leave your opponent. I think in Germany we say a golden bridge, and I'm pretty sure it translates fairly well. You want to leave a way to escape for an opponent, because otherwise he fights like a rat. When you chase a rat, it runs away from you, but if you manage to corner it, it turns around and is willing to fight. And you don't want your opponent to see him fully cut off and believing that it's over now and he has to fight for his life. You want him to keep running, and ideally make him suffer losses while he is running, because you still pound him with artillery or something like this. So according to that, there might have been a ceasefire. I see it as completely unconfirmed now, but it's an interesting news, and it's not completely impossible, and it has historic references. It has historic precedence in this case, so it wouldn't be something completely unspectacular. What we have now, and that's a really important, really interesting other thing. Now, in the southeast portion of the front line, this area here, the pro-Russian channel Rybar is actually reporting Ukrainian preparations for an offensive. There are 150 fresh military vehicles. I have the translation here. You can pause the video if you want to read it fully. They bringing reinforcements, fresh equipment, and a serious number of that. And what's really interesting, they are not just reinforcing, they are demining. They are taking away their minefields, which is the only reason for that is that you want to cross the area where your mines were lying so far to push forward into the enemy. So that would be an indication that Ukrainians actually want to do an offensive in this area. I have no idea what that offensive is supposed to reach, whether they are actually able to muster the troops to reach Mariupol and cover their flanks. That's the important part. They don't just have to punch through the lines and run until Mariupol. They need to make sure that they are not cut off and then destroyed by reinforcing the whole line and ideally widening the front line to both sides by attacking in those directions too. For that, 150 items of equipment should not be enough, but it might not be the first attack. That might just be another front line they are building up to cut off Crimea from the land bridge. And if that brings the Kerch bridge actually into the range of some long-range rocket systems that the Ukrainians are having or are receiving and that they are actually allowed to use, that could cut off that whole region from resupply more or less, as that would leave only planes, the Russian strategic transport fleets, like the Ilyushin 76, for instance, that would leave helicopters and the few ferries that might remain to cross the Kerch Strait to resupply here. But that would give, if that would actually be the case, that there's a further offensive and that offensive actually reaches Mariupol, that would leave the whole troop concentration of the Russians here in a real predicament, because while they might not starve with all the items that I have just mentioned, after the destruction of the Kerch Bridge, the available resupply would definitely go down and thus eat away the offensive, the fighting power of the Russians in this area. But it's far too early to talk about it. It's just interesting that the pro-Russian channel is reporting this, where you would not expect, according to source criticism, it seems highly unlikely that this sign of strength, and it's nothing but a sign of strength if you concentrate your forces and get ready for a further offensive in this very moment, it is highly unlikely that this is false reporting by the Russian side in these circumstances, but we will see whether it's just going to be some shaping of the area, some small tactical advances to gain a foothold at some hill or a transportation hub, or if this might actually be the next big Ukrainian offensive. And I cannot leave this video without showing you the most feared predator on the Ukrainian steppe that has been caught on video again in this war, which is the Ukrainian tractor, again once more pulling away Russian tanks. That's it for now. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do so, please subscribe and hit the bell button. Recommend the video to your friends and acquaintances and everyone that might be interested in some commenting from a German who is interested and is working in the field for 30 years and is a military historian. I have served in the German army as well, so I might be able to give some insights that other commentators can't. I hope you enjoyed it. Then please leave a thumbs up, leave some comments for the algorithm, or tell me what you think. Where should the next Ukrainian offensive be? Do you actually think they continue it? We will see. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again really soon.